Natalie Holloway is now suing the National Enquirer, the tabloid, claiming it published false stories to profit from her daughter's 2005 disappearance. The lawsuit mentions specific articles, including one that claims prime suspect Joran van der Sloot had a secret hand-drawn map to Holloway's grave in Aruba. Joining us now, Joey Jackson, former prosecutor and defense attorney, Keith Sullivan, also a defense attorney. Guys, welcome.
Thank you, Jenny. Good morning.
So I have the complaint right here. It's 28 pages. And it names 3 specific instances where Beth says that the headlines were not true. One is that grave map. The other one is that Natalie was buried alive. They didn't turn out to be true, but we don't really know what happened to Natalie Holloway. So, Joey, does she have a case?
I think she could, and here's why. There's something to be said, Jamie, for journalistic integrity. Now, you might say consider the source. It's the National Enquirer after all. But remember, there are rumors that the National Enquirer is being considered for a Pulitzer Prize. Yes, you heard me right, in connection with their reporting in John Edwards. Why is that relevant? It's relevant because people are putting their stock into what they're saying, and they're believing that these stories are true. And in the event that they're publishing things that are not true, then it's problematic. Last point. The point is that if you publish something, even if you argue that she was a public figure, there's this case, New York Times versus Sullivan, no relation to Keith, that says that you have to establish, if it's a public figure, that it was published with knowledge of falsity or reckless disregard as to its truth. They have some obligation to check out the sources and ensure that they are truthful. They didn't do so, and as a result of that, a defamation claim may lie.
I can't believe you just brought up that case. I had a flashback. I got called on that day.
In law school.
And it wasn't you, Keith Sullivan. Keith,
no relation.
What are the damages?
That's the problem here, Jamie. There really are no damages, and I suspect this lawsuit was filed simply to get to the Enquirer to back off away from this family. Certainly it's a heartbreaking case, but in the court of law, I don't see these claims succeeding. As Joey elegantly pointed out, in a defamation claim, she was declared deceased back in January, so you can't defame somebody who's no longer with us.
Right, but Beth doesn't believe it. She's not accepting that declaration. She still hopes her daughter will come home.
Unfortunately for her, her husband went to the surrogates court in Alabama and had a judge declare her dead, and a death certificate has been issued, so she can't pursue those claims. The real problem here is the formula that the Enquirer uses to do its reporting. And I use the word formula because it's just that. It's a mathematical equation. How salacious is the story? How big of a sell is it? And how much are we willing to pay somebody? What they're doing is they're not taking first-party ownership of their stories. They're simply saying, so-and-so has told us X, Y, and Z. And that's the problem. And that's where Joey Jackson...
Sources say.
And that's
not good enough, you're saying. But, Joey, let me read you this headline. I mean, I'm a parent. You're a parent. New bone evidence. Natalie was buried alive. Joran's secret graveyard with 5 more bodies. Killer's sickening confession caught on tape. Imagine. Emotional distress doesn't apply. What's the burden of proof?
It's really tough to imagine, Jamie, because remember, you're talking about a parent who has lost a daughter. What could be more traumatic than that, and not having any knowledge of where the body may be, whether she's dead, and as you said, holding out hope that, she's alive. And
Keith says no remedy either.
Well, the problem is that there will be an argument as to whether she's dead and whether or not the claim dies with a person who is dead. But if you look, I mean, emotional infliction of distress, that's a problem. This is outrageous, and it's outrageous because think about the infliction of stress that it would cause upon someone in reporting this story, particularly when you have knowledge that it may not be true.
We don't even have to imagine. Keith, quickly, do they have to have malice? Does it rise to malice?
There's 2 types of emotional distress. Intentional, and that you don't have here because they have to say the Enquirer is intentionally putting this out there to hurt her, and by their own admission in court, they said they're putting these stories out there to sell magazines. Negligent infliction of emotional distress, you might be able to get, but how do you separate the pain and suffering she goes through emotionally from the loss from what the Enquirer did? Very difficult to decipher those damages.
Got to leave it there, not to mention the emotional upheaval of going through a case like this.
Terrible situation.
Guys, thank you so much.
Good to see you,
Joey,
Jamie.
Take care. Have a good weekend.
Written poll bomb is working.